everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the PlayStation 4 Pro and see how this specific console has basically held up for the last couple of years. Now, I will tell you, the PS4 Pro I think is still completely worth it. I think it was a great console when it first came out, and I do think it has held up quite well in the power standpoint. The only thing that's kind of weirding me out a little bit is that it did kind of come out not super close to the PlayStation 5's release, but because we are kind of deep into the PS5's release, and now that the PS5s are more easily available, it might make a little bit more sense if you are able to swing over to buy something like a PS4 Pro, because those specific consoles are probably going to start getting some really, really good classic, exclusive games for those consoles that may not be playable on the PS4 Pro. But other than that, if you don't even care about that at all, what I just said for the last 30 seconds, the PS4 Pro is still a very, very good console as well. And I would probably argue all the PlayStation 4s are still very good consoles. So if you want to pick up any of these consoles, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside, in particularly, let's go and talk about a history of the PlayStation 4 real quick. So the original PS4 came out in 2013, and the PS4s were kind of released 2013, 2014 in some areas. And the thing I really liked about the PS4 was that it was a step up from the PS3. The design changed a little bit, but it was almost like if Sony took the PS3 Slim and combined it with the PlayStation 2, we kind of got the PlayStation 4. And I always liked the design of this console. I like how they kind of took a little bit of a chance with the controller as well, with that little touchpad thing on the top. And that was a really nice thing that they did. However, with the PS4, it was a big console, it was bulky, very similar to the Xbox One. However, they then made the PS4 Slim, which was an amazing upgrade. Not really an upgrade, but kind of a change of pace, which was really nice. And then they released that PS4 Pro. Now with the Pro model, this one came out in 2016, about 2 to 3 years later after the PS4's release. But if you think about it, it came out almost 4 years before the PlayStation 5 came out. So there was a long period of time from when the original PlayStation 4 Pro came out and then when the actual PlayStation 5 came out. So that's actually a pretty wild thing if you kind of think about it from that standpoint. Now looking on the outside, you can kind of see it looks almost exactly like the PlayStation 4, but funny enough, it is almost like a PlayStation 4, but with an extra layer added on top. And it's a pretty big console. It's supposed to be the Pro console, it's supposed to be the heavy hitter, and this is, no exception. It is a very, very good console, which is really, really nice. Now, if we take a look at the front, you can see we have the top PlayStation logo, which is always super good to have. And, we have the standard ports on the front, which is just a USB port. We also have the CD slot on the front as well. So you can just go ahead and pretty much just, plug and play with your games. This was kind of the last console to have a dedicated disc slot that is not a variation. So with the PlayStation 5s, they did go ahead and they have the disc PlayStation 5, but they also have the digital one. So this one was the last one that never had a digital one. It was just the PS4 Pro disc. There you go. Now on the back, you also have a very good port selection as well. So you still have a USB port on the back. You still have the HDMI port. You have an Ethernet port. You have the AC adapter. You have a lot of ports on the back too, which is really cool. So you can still plug in a lot of things on the back, and you can still plug in a lot of things on the front. So it's always nice to have that kind of situation going on versus something I'm trying to give an example, but I can't really think of any, but there may be some consoles out there that may only have one port or something. So I'm really glad that these specific consoles do have multiple ports and at least one on the front and then one on the back. Now that kind of covers it up on the outside. Now when it comes down to the actual PlayStation 4 looking forward, I am a little weirded out when it kind of comes down to this specific console, because it became, it's the PlayStation 4. At its core, even though it's way more powerful than a standard PS4, it is still a PS4 at the end of the day, so it's probably going to last as long as something like a standard PlayStation 4. So in terms of software updates and everything like that, you're going to be getting the same type of experience. But the other thing that you kind of have to keep in mind is that if a game is going to be coming out and a developer is going to be making a game, chances are if a developer is not making a game for the PS4, they are also probably not going to make it for the PS4 Pro. Now, I still think there's going to be lots of developers who overlap. There's still going to be lots of games that are going to be overlapping for sure, but you have to kind of remember that with a console like the PlayStation 4, even if that console doesn't get a game, the PS4 Pro is definitely not probably going to be getting that game either. So you have to think about, is the developer going going to make a game for a console that's 10 years old? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but I do think because the PlayStation 5s are now more readily available, you can go online and pick them up rather than waiting weeks and weeks and months. Well, that will make buying this console a little bit of a different experience, especially when game developers are no longer officially supporting games for these consoles, and maybe they're not even supporting updates for these consoles anymore either. So that's always another thing to keep in mind. But I will say, it still has a massive library of games behind it. So if we're taking a look at the actual speed of the specific console compared to the PS4, I mean, the PS4 on its GPU had 8 cores and it had, 8 gigabytes of RAM. The PS4 still has 8 gigabytes of RAM. The PS4 Pro still has, 8 cores, but the GPU is much better on the specific PlayStation 4 Pro than on the PlayStation 4. So that's always been something that you kind of have to keep in mind. You are getting a way more powerful console on something like the PlayStation 4 Pro over the PlayStation 4. You're also getting out to 4K gaming. You're getting the PS4 Pro HD, which would change the resolution of games from 1080p to 1440p, and you also had native 4K output as well, which was another really cool thing. Graphics were better, just everything looked better. You had HDR within those games too, and there was this frame rate boost, a little feature I guess that came within this specific console as well. So there was a lot of cool stuff within this console built right in, and that's not even touching the game selection that you have behind this console. There are so many games available for this specific device, not only ones that were exclusives, but also games that are still kind of being made. There were lots of games, and I'm pretty sure, as I mentioned before, I am pretty sure Grand Theft Auto 6, the latest generation game from Rockstar, I'm pretty sure that game is also going to be coming out for the, PlayStation 4 Pro as well. I would find it very hard to believe that they would just not give it to that specific last generation of gaming consoles. So I say that to say, the PlayStation 4 Pro and its gaming library, I mean, it is crazy. You have all those games that you could play before it. You have those, it's backwards compatible with a ton of different games that you can go and play. It's also there are so many digital games available for it that even if you didn't want to use that disc tray or you don't want to buy them used or whatever, you can always go ahead and just buy them in the, PlayStation Store, and you can go ahead and use those games from there. So that's also another big thing to keep in mind here too. So at the end of the day, the PlayStation 4 Pro, I think, is still completely worth buying. This is a very good console, and I think Sony did a tremendous job with it, when they released it. It was a direct competitor against the Xbox One X, but when I actually look at this thing, it could also be a really good, alternative to a PlayStation 5. At least it was for a few years. So since the PlayStation 5 came out in 2020, I've been stating, hey, if you don't want to buy a PS5 or if you can't buy it because they're sold out everywhere, you can always buy a PlayStation 4 Pro and you can still have a very good, quality console. So that was something that always kind of stood out to me. And now that we're kind of getting to an area where the PS5s are pretty much more readily available, you can buy them all over the place, it kind of makes buying a PS4 Pro, I don't know, maybe it's not the best idea in the world. It's still a very good console, but you might want to set yourself up right. And if you can get a PS5, if you can save up for it, that would make a lot more sense, since that console's kind of just getting started as well. And that console's probably going to last another 10 years. With the PS4 Pro, I find it hard to believe it's going to last another 2 years, maybe another 2 years of games. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But in terms of the PS4 Pro, that's kind of how it holds up in 2023. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.